Welcome to Slasher Sunday, the best day of the week. Moving on to Bates Motel, Season 3. Alright, what a season. Holy shit, Norman has completely lost his mind.
Yes.
There was hints.
Psycho.
There was hints of like the normal Norman, which this is great. This is the great progression of the character.
Yeah.
I do want to meet the normal Norman, right? Whatever that even means. But he is somewhat normal. When they very first move there and he runs into Bradley with their friends and he meets Emma and all that stuff, he at that point is pretty normal.
Yeah,
yes,
he's just odd.
He's killed his dad at that point, right? Like,
but
he's not perfect.
He doesn't even remember doing it.
No.
And he's like, he is much more normal. More of a normal Norman, for sure.
Yeah, this season, he is just pretty much gone the entire season.
Yes.
And by the end, he is beyond psycho.
Oh my god. Which is exactly what I thought was going to happen this season. I thought he was just going to totally lose his marbles even more.
Yeah.
And he did. And it's good to see. I mean, it's great to see. It's sad to see, though, as well.
Yeah.
Because, I still feel like with this show, Norma remains kind of the more sympathetic of the Bates as far as like the villains. Because I guess Norman and Norma are both villains in this. But with how far gone Norman is, it's really hard to connect with him in certain ways. But I also still feel like it's a lot of his mom's fault that he is the way he is. So it's weird, but I just feel like because Norma is all, like, she's still there and she can be so charming and everything, and Norman just, this whole season was not charming, like, at all. I think maybe we get a couple moments of him being a charming Norman in the beginning when he's like, I'm gonna date Emma, like, I'm feeling good.
And I'm gonna hang out with prostitutes.
Yeah. And then it goes downhill very quickly.
So, I think, I think you kind of said it there, but like my point would be like that Norman is only less sympathetic currently,
right? As
far as like outwardly, it seems like he's less sympathetic because he's no longer charming, and like Norma is very charming at times, and she's still very much there, which makes her more of a villain.
Absolutely.
Because she's way more aware of what she's doing than Norman is. Yes. Norman is just completely, gone. And so, and the other thing is like, we talked about this, and we'll continue to keep talking about this because it's probably the most interesting thing to discuss when it comes to Norman Bates and Norma, is nurture versus nature.
Right.
And with Norman, because we have Dylan in this show, if we didn't have Dylan, I think the conversation wouldn't have as much of an argument as it does with Dylan around. Dylan proves to me that it is more nurture than it is nature, right? Or I'm sorry, the opposite.
Yeah.
I said it backwards. Because Dylan has all the same shit going on around him, right? His mom treats him worse than Norman. Now, there could be the argument here that if Dylan was coddled and was the younger of the two, then and roles were reversed, would Dylan have become Norman? I don't think so. Norman has a predisposition for this split psyche. And because of, and I've said it before and I'll say it again, I think it's a pretty much 50-50 split down the middle, nature and nurture.
Yeah.
Right? It is partially, and by partially I mean 50% genetics, because Norma's fucking crazy.
Yeah. Her
parents are fucking crazy. Caleb, I don't see Caleb as crazy. I see
nuts.
Caleb is I don't know who the most tragic character in this show is.
I know.
I really don't know. It's kind of like a coin toss for me on who to feel the most sorry for.
Sure.
It's Yeah, because the way that I'm jumping all over the place. I'm going to try to stay focused here. As far as like the Dylan thing goes, Dylan is a product of incest. Dylan has big time mommy issues where she is completely rejecting him, and he covets her affection and, you know, her love more than anything. Like, he tries to act tough and he tries to act big, but at the end of the day, he just wants Norma's affection and acceptance. And Norman wants the same, right? He just wants it to the nth degree. And Norma gives it to Norman, and she does not give it to Dylan. And Dylan kind of has to, you know, go his own way and forge his own path. And she resents Dylan because he's a product of Caleb. And that's why she pushes Dylan away, as we had discussed in the last season.
I do think that, like you were saying, it's a 50-50 split, because as much as Dylan maybe doesn't have like some of the qualities that Norman has as far as like the blackouts and everything, he has killed people. And he still like has that, you know, like...
Dylan kills people only to be a good guy.
I know,
he
but...
only kills people to protect.
Yeah.
And Norman kills... That, we'll get into that.
I know, but that's the
a whole
complication, right? Like, so, but that's the thing, though, is I think that Dylan is damaged, you know, just as, maybe not just as much, but almost as much as Norman is.
I don't know about that.
Norma,
because it would be like comparing, like, you know, someone who fought in World War II to Ted Bundy. Right?
Yeah.
Like, they both killed people, so they're both mental. No.
No, well,
some people do it for a good reason, and some people do it for a bad reason.
I'm just meaning that, like, Dylan has, like, a streak in him where I think that he would kill somebody, but it's like, I mean, it's gray area, right? Like, I don't think he kills people for the wrong reasons. Like, when he kills the dude,
Shelby.
What's his face? Shelby. Like, he's not doing it for the wrong reasons, but it's kind of like that moral gray area of, like, you know, when is it okay to kill somebody in general? Which is the same thing with, like, horror and stuff. But that's just what I mean, justified. Is that, like... And he also, like, I talked about it before, like, he puts himself in these situations, like, he can't keep a normal job, he gets involved in, like, a drug, like, cartel type of thing, you know, he's trying to run guns this season, although he is doing that for a very good reason, right? But so I do think that his motivations, and I think his heart is in the right spot, but I'm just using those as examples to how he is fucked up by his mom, so he's like character. Outside of the realm of like what society would consider as healthy and like safe and normal behavior, which isn't always like the right thing. Society's wrong a lot of the time, but just like that's kind of what you have to use as a guideline, right, for like mental health in general and like how people can function. So, but he's a super tragic character.
If Dylan was a character in The Sopranos or some other organized crime show, and he wasn't attached to the Bates family, and he committed all the same acts, if he was in Peaky Blinders or whatever the hell, would you think of him the same way? I feel like it's because he's attached to the Bates family that you paint him in this kind of like, well, morally gray, this and that.
No, I mean, like, I really like Dylan. I'm just trying to like look at their family kind of like, I don't know, not objectively, but just like based on like how they all have mental problems as a result of Norma.
Sure.
Like,
I mean,
I'm just looking
Dylan
at it like
is a product
that.
of Norma, there's no doubt, but one does things selfishly and one does things completely selflessly. I mean, when he goes and runs and does this fucking, you know, gun run, he doesn't even want Emma to know whether he did it. Yeah. He just wants to do something good for her because it makes him feel good. Like, because A, he has a thing for her, but also because he just wants to give back because he feels like he's done shitty things. But compared to his family, he should feel real good. Because he's definitely the best of them, right? Like, and as far as like Caleb goes, you know, Caleb is a super tragic story. I mean, I know people might be super down on him because he raped Norma, but like we don't know what their relationship was like. We see a very minor glimpse of it where they're like under the house and they're like cuddling on each other. And you can tell with Norma drives men insane.
Yes.
Right? Norma has this power over men where they do crazy shit.
Yes.
For her, because she just has that going on. She has that kind of intoxication kind of intoxicating effect on men. Mm-hmm. And so, Caleb comes in and they form a relationship.
Yeah. And
they're having sex and they're like boyfriend, girlfriend, and they're like the only thing they have is each other. And, she flips on a dime. One day. Mm-hmm. As far as the story goes, I mean, this is what has been conveyed to us as the audience, is like, one day Norma flips and is like, I've decided this isn't right. Like, I've heard some things, I've thought about this, whatever. What we're doing is not right. And she is literally everything to him. He has nothing. And he like wants this to retain, to keep going. And he's like not having it, and he pushes himself on her, like trying to get her back. Mm-hmm. And then, pushes it too far, has sex with her without her consent, right? Obviously rape.
Yeah.
And then he spends the next 30 years of his life, destroying his entire world because he hates himself for what he did to the one person that he truly loves in the world.
Yeah.
And she refuses to speak to him, refuses to see him, when it's just like they had a thing. They were like, this is like, yes, it's his sister, but it's beyond that, right? When they're intimate, this is that Jaime and Cersei Lannister kind of thing where it's like they're beyond brother and sister. They're beyond husband and wife. They're the combo of both.
Right.
Which is even a stronger bond. I mean,
sure.
A lot of people would look at incest and that kind of stuff and be like, ew, that's icky and gross. But if you're in love with somebody who's your sister, so you got the sister connection, right? Sister-brother connection. Then you have the romantic connection, and you're in an abusive household where all you have is each other.
Yeah.
They're so intertwined.
Yeah.
His brain is literally connected to hers. So when she rejects him, and he has nothing, and especially when he's growing up in a house with nothing but violence and sex, his response is sexual violence.
Yeah.
And then he fucking hates himself because he's a good guy who just did a bad thing, and then he regrets it for the rest of his life and literally can't function until he can make amends and get to know this kid that they made out of rape.
Yeah.
Whether or not Dylan came from the rape or not, I don't know. Maybe Dylan came from a different time they had sex, but regardless, he's a product of what they did.
Yeah, well, and that's how I think Norma views him, is like a rape baby for sure, because she definitely resents him for that. I think Caleb's really sad and super tragic, and he is, a tough character because it's like, as you said, like he did something bad, but he's ultimately a good person. I do believe that, but I do think he's rough around the edges too, because like he's got a warrant out for his arrest, like we don't know why. Like there's some questionable stuff with him, but I do think that he's trying to make things better for himself and, to apologize for his sins and everything. And I think that that's, shouldn't be overlooked, because it's important. And especially like with Dylan this whole season, I feel like their relationship really got to grow and went on some like kind of ups and downs for sure. Like the episode where everybody is over for dinner, like the whole family was so like, besides Norman, who was just being stinky during the whole episode, but like that whole dinner scene and everything when everyone's happy, and like the next day Norma's like really like happy with Dylan and it's like, oh, it's so nice having Alex over and like everybody over and stuff, and it's like, why can't you guys just be normal? Why can't you just be a decent family? Like, but they can't.
At this point, there's no going back.
There isn't any going back, and it's fine. Like, I get it. I just am like, I want them to all be happy because I do see positives in everybody in the show, which is funny because Norma is such a, like, manipulative and bad person, but I feel like she does care about her kids and, you know, like her business and everything. Like, I do feel like there's a part of her that's good. Same thing with Norman, of course. I think that there's definitely a side of him that is a decent human being. And then Dylan, obviously, and Caleb we've talked about. And then Emma is just, like, pure and precious. And, like, she's the one that should be the happiest in the show.
Yeah.
She deserves it the most. Which, you know, there's a huge cliffhanger on her surgery this season. So, I don't know. I mean, you know what happens. I'm going to guess she doesn't die. But it's possible. I'm just going to guess that the surgery is a success. But I don't know. I'm going to be really sad if she passes away because, you know, obviously that's going to mess Dylan up a lot. And also just, it would be really sad to have that character die. Yeah.
As far as Norma goes as a person, as a character, I think what's super interesting about Norma is, yeah, she's a tragic character, right? She came from an abusive household. She, you know, had to resort to a relationship with her brother, which ended in a hostile end. And when she has her moments, when she's like throughout the show and she's doing the things that she's doing, Vera Farmiga plays this so wonderfully because, like, she always presents herself in a way that makes you believe that she genuinely is, like, she thinks she's the good guy.
Yeah.
And she believes that she's doing the right thing and that, like, the world's out to get her and that she's the victim. She's like typical victim mentality of somebody who is the problem.
Yeah.
Right. And there's this narcissism behind it, but like it's completely lost on her. Like she does a very good job of being a pathological liar.
Oh, yeah, that's the word.
I literally just thought of it right now.
That's so funny. Yeah, she is a pathological liar.
And so she believes her own bullshit.
She does.
Right. So when she's like, when she goes in and she has this look that she always does where she's like,
she just looks so like
what?
Like how could you not believe? Like what?
Like
what?
how? Like how is this happening to me?
Yes, yeah.
Like what? What?
Yes.
Why are you gonna do this to me? And it's like, Norma,
I know.
come on. But she buys it. It isn't an act.
Yeah.
She genuinely, and that's where the pathology comes in of lying. It's like she does, and a lot of people might watch this show, and unfortunately, I grew up with a pathological liar of a mother, and so like I know how that goes, and I know like people who haven't been exposed to that, they just think like this person's a terrible person because they're just a fucking liar, and it's like they are a bad person because they're lying, but they don't think they're lying.
Yeah, that's what's really crazy about it is that they're like they've convinced themselves that they're like
that they're the good guy.
They're right. Yeah, and that's what's so shitty too, though. But that's, as you said, where the pathology is, and
which makes for great drama on television, but a horrible environment in reality.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So they're really entertaining on television, but you don't want to live with one.
No.
So Norma has some really great time to shine here, as always. Her episode called Norma Louise, where she has her freak out, leaves, goes and buys some provocative outfit, buys a new Mustang, not new, but like a new to her.
A new car, yeah.
She gets rid of her Mercedes that she loves, and she goes and she like hits on this guy in the bar who's a total asshole. But
oh my God.
Yeah, okay, Kaylee and I were laughing about this. This is so insane. Like the fact he takes her out to the truck and he's like trying to make out with her and like hit on her and all that stuff that he was doing, and then like he starts to like take down his pants and she's like, well, what are you doing? And he just grabs her head and he's like forces it into his lap, and it's like, do you think that's gonna work? I mean,
yeah, like how does he think that like blowjobs work? Like you just like they have to open their mouth and like pleasure you. They're not gonna bite you or like.
Well, I think it's
fight
just
back or
yeah, I think that's what it is. It's the like dominance and the girl just being subservient, being like, you know, it's the, you know, it's like the people we talk about who they don't like confrontation, and they don't like, being the person to let someone down or bump someone out.
Oh my God.
And so they'll kind of get into that going like, I guess maybe I let him on and I got to do this. And it's like,
God.
no. And with Norma, Norma ain't going to take shit from anybody, right? She'll fucking cut it. She'll bite it off before
100%.
she does anything.
Yes.
You do not want Norma Bates on your dick without her approval.
Yeah.
She'll bite that thing off without even thinking about it. I'm surprised that's not what happened.
I know. That would have been so good.
But yeah, I mean, yeah, she goes out and her and Romero have been dancing around this really screwed up relationship for multiple seasons now. And he's another, like, we find out about his lineage, right? Yeah. His mom died and his dad, like, was funneling money through her name.
Yes.
And Alex is another, like, tragic character who can't make any good decisions and is constantly killing people right and left.
Constantly. He kills so many people.
So is he, like, just as bad as Dylan to you?
I mean, maybe even, like, worse in some ways, because he's also, like, law enforcement. He's supposed to be the one that's, like... But he's also killing people that are, like, criminals, so it's really weird, but he's just doing it, like, outside the realm of, like, the legal system, so I don't know. His character is... I have a hard time kind of pinpointing, like, how his character is going to go. And I think a lot of it, like, the last couple seasons, he's played, like, he does not smile. He hardly made, like, any facial expressions. Like, he was always just, like, straight face. And then in this season, like, he actually smiles with Norma and stuff. And he's, like, letting his guard down with her, which is a huge mistake.
Yeah.
And I didn't want him to do that because... Like, you just seeing him get, like, what's the word? Like, warped, or not warped, dragged into her, like, her stuff. I'm sorry, that's not a good description, but it sucks, because it's, like, he already has his own issues, like, a lot of issues to deal with, and he's trying to, like, keep this town, like, out of the criminal, like, past that it comes from. And he's not doing a good job at it because, like, everybody in the town, like, all the rich people, that's, like, how they've made their money.
Yeah.
Is through these, like, crime syndicates or whatever. So it's, like, even though that he, like, brought down the marijuana business, like, there's still this huge vacuum for people, like, to do illegal stuff. And he's just, like, going, like, it's an uphill battle, I feel like. But, I don't know, I mean, I do think that he's flawed, obviously, and I do think he's also morally gray, just like Dylan, because... I think that he tries his best to, like, bring justice to people, but he's also he's deciding, like, what that justice is.
Yeah.
So.
Well, speaking of criminals, we get introduced to a couple new ones here. We got Bob Paris.
Yep.
And we got Chick.
Yeah.
Played by Ryan Hurst from Sons of Anarchy and Walking Dead. Very bizarre character.
Super
So
weird.
what did you think of those two storylines? So we got Bob Paris, who is part of this, like, higher society kind of, what is that called? The, the one that all, like, the presidents and everything go to.
Oh, I know what you're talking about, but I can't remember.
Where they, like, burn a fucking owl effigy. I forget what this is.
I totally can't remember what it's called.
I can't remember at the top of my head right now. Damn it.
Yeah.
But he runs this like high society, highfalutin, like rich men in cigar filled back rooms.
Yes.
Doing anything that they want to prostitutes and discarding them like trash.
Yeah.
So we have this woman who's a prostitute, and she comes to the motel, and she ends up missing, and then a girl who looks like her dies, and we find out that this was a colleague of hers, and that she ends up coming to the motel and dying in Norma's arms, giving her a flash drive, which then gives Norma this idea of holding some kind of thing over Bob Paris and all these rich guys, and that she wants an exit off the bypass with a sign for the Bates Motel, and she wants a pool, and she'll promise she ain't ever gonna come to him for nothing ever again. And she like thinks she's gonna play this like mafia mama.
Yeah.
That new Toni Collette movie.
Oh yeah. She does think she's gonna do that.
And this doesn't go so well. So we got that, and then of course we got the chick storyline, which is this like weird freaking hermit drifter looking dude who acts super bizarro and like comes over, and he's a super odd character, and we definitely have not seen the last of him.
Yeah.
So what do you think of Bob Paris and Chick as like the main antagonists this season?
Well, truthfully, I feel like this season was a lot more focused on like the family and Norman's like meltdowns and everything. Obviously, like the crime stuff is always happening in the background, but I just didn't feel that it was as much of the focus as it has been in the past seasons, which is fine. I mean, Bob Paris, like, he's a rich scumbag for sure. Like, you know, he was just gross. And what happens to him, I mean, he gets off kind of easy, right? Like, Alex warns him that the FBI is coming, so it's like he sort of gets to leave and everything.
And then is killed.
Yeah. But, like...
He doesn't get off easy, he gets shot to death.
I don't know. Like, he gets off easy compared to, like...
having to go to prison and face the consequences.
And having to face the consequences and having, like, the fallback from, like, everybody knowing, like, and you having to, like, witness them knowing. So that's what I mean by him getting off easy. Like, yeah, he dies. Chick is weird. Chick is really weird. I don't know what to make of him. I do feel like he set up Dylan and Caleb a bit with the whole gun run fiasco. So I don't trust him for sure, and I do think that he's gonna, I mean, as you were saying, like, he's gonna come back and try and kill Caleb for sure. But it's weird because he has like a wife and like she's pregnant, and like he's kind of this like not nomad, but like off the grid dude. Like, it's weird though. Yeah, like a hermit, like you said. So he's just bizarre. He's really bizarre. But I always like the side like crime stuff going on. I like that it makes like the rest of the storylines like all kind of come together with those, you know, inclusions, I think.
As far as Bob Paris goes for me, I feel like this is just kind of a retelling of the thing that happened in the first season, where Romero showed up and shot him on the docks.
Yeah,
right?
I felt
and the same thing happens here. You know, Romero shows up and shoots him on the docks.
Yeah.
And it's just like he's holding something over Norma's head because Norma has information that he wants. And, you know, there's some kind of drug thing or like hush-hush thing with big guys who talk big. And then Romero just kind of kills them, and then that's that.
Yeah.
Right. So I feel like they are recycling plot lines there a little bit. It's kind of just like with a new sheen to it. So I think they just need to have something for Romero to do.
Yeah.
And they need to have something for Dylan to do outside of the family. Sure. Right, because he can't just hang out in the house all the time. So I don't dislike it. That guy who plays Bob Paris always is a fucking weasel. So nothing new for him. Ryan gives a good performance here. Chick is definitely a standout character as far as like his performance goes. He's a very weird, odd guy. Yeah. Like when he's like thinking and he's like rocking out with his head and all that stuff. Gosh, and you're just like, fuck is this guy doing?
Like, what is it? Because I feel like I've met people like that before. Like I've seen those people where you're like, because there's eccentric people that like, but they're not threatening to you, and then there's the eccentric people that are threatening, and he is that where you're like, I don't know if you're gonna freak out and like kill me, or if like you're just gonna say something weird.
When he like lies about the dog, he comes and he's like, you see my dog, and he keeps whistling for it and all that, and then they come to his place later, and he's like, yeah, I think we shot your dog. He's like, what are you talking about? I don't have a dog.
Yeah, that kind of stuff is like, why would you even say that then? Like, what's the deal?
Yeah. As far as his character goes, I definitely think that, like, he was losing favor and was suspicious that these people might try to turn on him. So he just sent some, randos to take his place and sacrifice some of the cut just to, save his ass if things went south.
Yeah.
And he's like, I don't even like these guys anyways. They're on my land.
I know.
So if they die, oh well.
Yeah, they shouldn't have trusted him. So.
Right. So Caleb should not have left him alive. But at the same time, with a warrant, killing him would be bad as well.
I know.
So there's not really a good scenario there.
Yeah.
But they did rip him off for $50,000, even though he owned up 25. So they just took double what they were owed, and I feel like they earned it because they were almost killed.
Yeah.
And it was only because of Caleb's foresight and intuition of like, I'm going to put this gun here just in case. And it's a little convenient that he made him go sit next to the car right next to that area. Yeah. That's just convenience for plot. Whatever. I don't care. This is movies, people. There's always plot convenience.
Dylan is really lucky, though, that he came.
Sure.
Him.
Oh, my God. Dylan be dead.
Dylan
100%.
Was, yeah.
So, okay. We got all that. We got Emma's surgery, right? Yep. Left off. We got Emma and Dylan's romance.
I really like their romance.
Yeah.
They make the most sense. And, they have great chemistry together. And it's just super cute seeing, the beginnings of it and seeing, how they make each other happy. And,
the phone call's super cute.
The phone call's adorable when he's going and he's like, I'm just going to be out of town for a couple days.
And they, do those pauses where they're like,
both...
I really wanted this phone call to keep going.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I should say that.
Yeah.
So, it's that awkward, but then you kind of smile because you're like, they're thinking it too.
Yeah. Right? It's super adorable. So I really want them to be happy. I want her to have a successful surgery in the next season.
Sure.
And for her and Dylan to just live on that land together because she's like, it's such a beautiful piece of land and all that would be really cute. But something's gonna happen. I don't know what. I'm afraid Dylan's gonna die. Honestly, I feel like he's gonna get killed by Norman or something.
Yeah.
So.
As far as all that goes, shit, you talked too long. No, you didn't talk too long at all. I was going to say one more thing about that. Oh,
romance?
Yeah, so I was remarking to Kaylee because I find this to be really funny because I think that Norman Bates or Freddie Highmore or whoever you want to point at there, but for the show, it's Norman, obviously. I find it funny. Dylan, who I find to be way more attractive and way more put together and way better, is always picking up after Norman's table scraps.
Oh, I know.
Norman starts banging Bradley, and then Bradley comes to Dylan. Norman, Emma is pining over Norman and doting over him, and then he dates her, and then he goes crazy and she leaves him, and then Dylan gets to pick up that.
Yeah.
And it's like all of Norman's failed relationships. Dylan's just waiting behind him. I'm gonna get it. It's somehow every hot chick in this show is all about Norman.
Yeah.
And I just can't for the life of me get it. You got Bradley, Emma, Blair Watson, and arguments can be made for Norma Bates. Those are the 4 hottest chicks in the show, and they're all about Norman.
Yeah.
And I just don't get it. It's hilarious to me. But crazy guys, right? These women read these psycho books for a reason, right? They love them psycho guys.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, he's got the boyish charm thing going for him for sure. He's a cutie. I don't know. Yeah, he's just, I guess it's kind of how Norma has that, intoxicating effect on men. Norman also has that, but going with women.
I don't see
in
it
some way,
him.
But it's it's the boyishness in
gay,
him. It's
so maybe.
People, I don't know what that is. But it is funny because Dylan's, definitely the more attractive of the two for me, and...
Oh, God, of course. I hope so.
Yeah, but it's funny because, in the Psycho movie, I think Anthony Perkins is really handsome.
Mm-hmm.
He's super handsome, and... he's fine. He's a cute guy. He's a cute kid, and in a different context, maybe he would be a little bit more appealing. But I do think
a little boy body.
That's the boyishness. He has the boyish charm, which is exactly what Norman should have. You know, at this time, that he is, what is the word? He is infantilized by his mother, and that is somehow the psycho in him has twisted that to make it like an attractive quality for women. It's like this innocence and like sweetness that comes through, where they're like, you're not like the other men who just want to have sex with me, and it's like, no, it's because he like kills people when he has sex.
Yeah.
But like that's kind of, I think, how they interpret it, is like he's a gentleman, you know, like because his mom raised him right. Like, and there's always, that's the other thing too, like how many women always tell their like daughters, like, you'll know, like, you know, how your boyfriend or whoever you're interested, like how they treat their mom is how they're gonna treat you. Like that's how they treat women. And so seeing how much he loves his mother,
sure,
you know, that's like a big positive for most people, but they don't know how much he actually loves his mother.
It's also a telltale sign for someone like Norman.
Right. But they don't, you know, that's not like,
they don't know
evident.
the extent
They
of
don't.
it.
They just think he's a good son. And, you know, I think that we get the therapist with Joshua Leonard.
I was
going to
say, so we have two more characters to discuss.
It was cool seeing him.
So we got Joshua Leonard from the Blair Witch Project, right? So he plays the therapist in this that Norma meets while going to a community college.
Yeah.
She sits in on the wrong class. He becomes infatuated with her because she's Norma Bates and every guy wants her. And so they start a relationship, and holy shit does that go south.
Oh my god, this poor guy, like... But he's like another one of those people, though, that he's like attracted to broken individuals. And he even kind of says it, too, where he's like, I have a theory that like people who have bad childhoods, like we can tell. And it's like, but that's really just he wants to fix her. Yep. And oh my god, his whole life, I mean, he has to leave town. Like, he gets totally beat up, and like he sleeps with her, but he sleeps with her on the night when she is like out of her mind and like having this like episode where she's like doesn't mean anything, like she's just using him. And she tells him, of course, you know, that Norman killed his dad, which is a huge mistake, because then when Bob Paris gets a hold of him, he beats it out of him and, you know, gets that to hold over Norma's head. And, I feel really bad for him. But, like, I also feel like he's kind of doing it to himself in some ways, too. But
this also plays into something to come. Because Bob Paris is dead. Joshua Leonard's character is gone. But now somebody else knows that Norman killed his father.
Alex knows.
Yes.
Yeah, Alex does know that Norman killed his father, and that's huge.
To come.
Well, because now that that calls everything into question. But
that's definitely going to play into
Joshua Leonard's character, though, it does like fully confront Norman about like are you sexually attracted to your mom, and this kind of is
prompts him to try to kill him.
Yes, and from there too, like Norman is actually exploring.
I have a question. Who is trying to kill the therapist? Norman or Norma?
It's Norman.
Because he talks... Okay, the reason I asked this question is because...
It's hard.
Norman remembers this.
He does remember this, and I think that because he's offended by... Like, he's insulted by
Norman
that suggestion. So Norman is also a killer.
Is potentially a killer too, but the difference is that Norman doesn't follow through.
Norman doesn't. He just kind of chokes him out and then gets super mad.
He catches himself and it scares him.
Yes.
He's kind of like, what the hell's wrong with me?
Yeah.
Why did I just try to kill this guy?
And
then he tells his mom when he's in bed with her, like, it's because I think it might be true. And of course she's like, oh, that's ridiculous.
God. Her response to that is insane. Like, the fact that she's... I mean, okay.
Because
the first
of
part
everything that's happened at this point, it is not...
It's not appropriate.
Yes.
Like, the first part, like, we were talking, like, it would be normal, like, for her to be like, it's okay, like, you're just noticing, like...
Yeah, you look at my tits,
I get
and sometimes,
like,
you notice them. Yeah, sure. Any dude's gonna notice tits.
But that's not then she starts to, like, kind of cuddle with him, and I guess the idea is to be like... Dude, the way she like looks at him and everything, like we've talked about it. They are romantic. Like it's not the way you look at your children at all. Like a horrible reaction. Like the response she has just encourages Norman. But yeah, that I was just gonna say
she's
before,
an enabler.
She's an enabler, but yeah, like Norman starts like looking, like he goes into her room after and is like looking at her butt while she's sleeping, and then the
touching
next day
her ass.
he's like touching it and like looking at her more, and it's definitely gross and scary because it's like we know where it leads, obviously. Like, this is just another thing kind of fueling him in his psychosis. And it's sad, but it's also, like, Norma's fault. Like, she is way too affectionate with him. And even after being told by multiple people this season that Norman was acting as Norma.
Oh, sure.
Like,
Caleb and
told,
Dylan. Mm-hmm.
And I know she goes to, like, a mental health, like, retreat thing or whatever.
Oh, my God.
Like, I know she does go there.
The
Because
place
she does
that's $40,000 a month.
Yeah. Which is insane. So, like, I think she is kind of starting to, it's because she's becoming afraid of him, though, that she's trying to, like, get him help, so to speak. And also because I think, you know, now that she's told people that he's killed, that he killed her husband, like, she's trying to prevent it from happening again because she doesn't want to keep covering for him.
So this is a really important part of the show. When Norma does eventually, you know, she talks to Dylan, and Dylan's like, listen, like, I came down here, he was in the kitchen, he thought he was you.
Yeah.
Like, and she sees that as, like, a big red flag. So
Yes.
she actually has a moment where she's like, oh, shit, this is a problem.
Yeah.
And so she goes out and she seeks counsel, right? She seeks help from this place. She goes to Joshua Leonard, who she, of course, dismisses as a quack because there's no way Norman could possibly have sexual feelings for me. Norma, it's written every fucking place. So she's in horrendous denial. Yes. So that's all obvious and well and whatnot. But, like, this is not only great for the show, but this is, like, I don't want to get too, I don't want to say political, but, like, I don't know what other word to describe this. But with my beliefs in our current healthcare system, like, this is a really good light to shine on an issue that I feel like isn't discussed enough, where it's like, yeah, we have a mental health crisis for sure in this country. And because of, you know, the cost, it's not anyone but, like, higher ups are able to be afforded that luxury.
Yeah.
And so, like, Norma goes in with these intentions of, like, okay, I'm gonna deal with this problem, and we've all been there. Like, I've been in those situations, not just in health, but in general with, like, taxes or with debt or whatever. Like, for instance, I had a credit card that, like, I got a late payment on, and it, like, doubled. I didn't have the money at the time, and it, like, doubled, and I wanted to pay it, but I was like, dude, I don't have, like, I didn't have the fucking money before, and they're like, minimum is now this. And then, like, I waited, and I was like, all right, and I kind of tried to save up the money, and then the next time I went to call in, they were like, oh, well, now it's been another few weeks, so now it's quadrupled.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't have the money. So eventually I just had to let the card go, right? And it became debt collectors and all that shit, because I was just like, I don't know what you want me to do. Like, I can't solve this problem. So what you do is you start to just ignore it. And you start to say, well, I mean, I guess the system's against me. Yeah. And so you start to make up excuses. And Norma goes there with these intentions of, like, I'm going to put Norman in here. I just want to make sure I can visit him. And, like, he's going to get the help he needs. And, like, I'm going to finally do the right thing. Yeah. And because she can't get it done, she has to then go home and convince herself that there's not a problem. Because she doesn't want to believe that she can't help him because of her financial limitations. So she then has to go home and be like, all right, well, I can't afford this. So, you know what? It's probably nothing wrong. He's probably fine. You know, I'm just going to talk to him and I'm going to see that there's not a problem, because she doesn't want to deal with the fact that the system is set up in such a way that she can't get him the help that he really needs. Yeah. So she needs to make herself like she's a pathological liar. So she can convince herself very quickly, like, you know what, I can't fucking afford it, but he's fine. It's just Norman. Like, he looks at my tits once in a while. What kid doesn't? It's all good. He thinks he's me. Puberty. Like, she'll be able to do that because she can't get him the help he needs because it's way too expensive. Are there other facilities that are less money and this and that, but not for Norman, right? Not for perfect Norman. She wants him to be in a good place. She doesn't want to put him in some fucking crackpot house, which a lot of people go to, and they don't get better. They get worse.
Right. Because, well, that's the whole thing, right? Like, she's trying to put him in the best place so that he can actually not feel like he's being imprisoned or whatever, right? Yep. And can actually improve. And she does actually go home and talk to him about that she visited a place like that, which goes really poorly, and Norman is like, so you've just given up on me, which we thought was funny, because it's like, no, that's the opposite of giving up on you. Like, she's trying to help you specifically, but he feels very betrayed by that. And I also wanted to say that, like, so we get a lot more of Norman's Norma hallucinations in
Yes.
this, and she is much sexier now in this
Yeah.
season. Like, she's got her, like,
She wears the dress that he
shoulders,
keeps
she
under
wears
his
the
bed.
dress, she's
Yeah.
got her shoulders exposed, and she's, like, just very, like, alluring and evocative.
Yeah.
And
jealous.
and jealous.
Yeah.
And it's really great to see the character development of Norman, like, because, like, seeing him in the kitchen, like, when he's having his breakdown when Norma leaves and he's in her robe and he's, like, just seeing all of that. Like, I do think Freddie Highmore does a great job at playing this character, because, like, there's so many parts in this show where he's, like, genuinely scary with how gone he is, like, and but I really like seeing the Norma, like, evolution of his hallucinations.
I think that the scene where he reacts to her going to visit a madhouse, it's a good, like, complimentary piece to the Psycho film when Norman is talking to Marion Crane, and Marion Crane brings up putting her in some place.
Yeah.
And Norman's like, that's what they always call it, don't they? Some place, a madhouse. Like, could you imagine my mother in there? Like, he has such a repulsive, like, idea of what a mental institution can be.
Yeah.
Like, in his mind, like, even though Norma went to, like, the freaking Ritz-Carlton.
It looked like, oh my god,
it was
like
Club Med. It was
yeah.
like the best place you could possibly. It was a vacation resort getaway.
Yes.
But of course, in Norman's mind, he's thinking of, like, some
padded cell.
padded
like,
cell, where he's, like, crazy and screaming in a corner. So I like that little detail there. I don't know if that was intentional, but that's what it harkened back to in my mind when they talked about his reaction to a madhouse. It just reminded me of, like I could put my mom in there, which would actually go well together if they did kind of replay that scene in a way later. Is like his negative viewpoint on mental institutions, mental health facilities, as that would be the more pleasant term for it. So, and lastly, Bradley Martin returns.
Yeah.
She wants her life back. Her mom has completely moved on from her, which she takes very poorly. I don't know what to make of this. We don't get to know Bradley's mom, like, at all. I think we meet her for, like, 3 seconds in the show in, like, season 1 or something. So we don't really know anything about her. So I don't know. Everyone grieves in different ways. Some people want to get rid of everything because they can't deal with the pain.
Yeah.
Some people want to keep every memento imaginable, keep their kid's room exactly the same till the day they die.
Right.
And either one is, your prerogative. That's how you deal with it. That's how you deal with it. I'm not going to judge people for how they react. Now, like the movie we just watched and talked before this, where the guy's like, your kid has to be a certain age before you even care about them. If they die, you don't even remember them in a month. Like, that's totally different.
Yeah.
But with Bradley's mom, I don't know what to say about her. She seems kind of like a cold bitch to me, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Regardless, she did create Bradley, so it stands to reason her mom probably is what she says.
Yeah.
But this is very obvious that Bradley is kind of like a freebie kill.
Yes.
Because she's already dead.
Yeah.
Right? So he doesn't have to disappear her very hard. Right? You can't, this is like double jeopardy of some sort, right? Like, Bradley Martin is dead. So you kind of realize, like, when she comes back, like, oh, Norman's going to kill her, and it's not going to really matter because she's already dead.
This is still definitely my favorite death in the whole series so far, though.
Because
I think,
of how they transition over to Norma.
It's so cool to see that. And, I mean, it's tragic, of course. I don't want her to die. Like, she's just super messed up character from everything. But, like, as you said, she was definitely, like, a freebie death.
Yeah.
But it's really cool to see Norma, kind of take control of Norman's body. His version of Norma, and kill her.
Yeah, because we get some great scenes in this of, like, Norman recounting moments where he's like, yes, I did, Mother. I talked to you today.
Yeah.
Don't you remember?
That
and it's
stuff.
like, he straight up thinks he's talking to Norma.
Yes.
When he's Norman.
Yes.
So, like, it's interesting because there's scenes we're talking about the mind of a psychopath. We're talking about the mind of somebody with a split personality disorder who is also violent. And so like it's weird because with a split personality disorder, from my understanding of split personality disorders, is that when somebody is one person, they're that person. And I don't know how much they communicate with the other people within them. And they are either just that person and then they flip to another person. But in Norman's case, he's Norman talking to Norma outside his body. And then he becomes Norma. Yeah. And Norman is like not around. So that's an interesting one because he's Norman talking to Norma. But so like when okay, for instance, like when he's in the car with Bradley. Yeah. Norma's in the back seat. Norman is talking to Norma. Yeah. Right? So she's there and he's talking to her. Yeah. Then he becomes Norma. Yeah. And then Norman is nowhere to be found. He's not there. Yeah. It's not like he becomes Norma and Norman's over here and there's some like bot Norman.
Well, that's what I understood for like split personalities is I don't know about the like talking to one another, but I thought that they're developed as like a defense mechanism for some type of emotion or situation that like the core identity can't handle. Sure. So like Norman disappearing when Norma is in charge makes total sense that Norma is taking over to like, control him.
Of course.
But them talking to each other, I don't know what like how realistic that is for people who deal with like split personalities. I have no idea.
I don't know either.
It'd be fascinating to find out like if that's something that happens. I could see that being a case, but I don't know. But it is interesting
because like when Dylan comes down to the kitchen and Norman is Norma cooking. Yeah. She claims that Norman is upstairs asleep. Yeah. So he's not in the vicinity. He's in a different room. Yeah. Norma is completely distant from him. Yeah. When she takes over his body in the Bradley murder scene, Norman disappears from frame. Right. So Norman no longer seems to exist when Norma takes over completely. Yeah. But Norma can kind of step in and influence Norman as Norman. Yeah. Now, whether or not Norma is in that does Norma, I can't remember. Does Norma show up in his mind when he's talking to Joshua Leonard's therapist character?
No, we don't see
He just reacts straight up. It's him. It's always him.
It's just him in that scene. Yeah.
That's super interesting.
Yeah, that scene I think is just purely Norman.
So Norman has a few different kind of sides. Yeah. He has normal Norman, which seems to be fewer and fewer moments where there's an actual normal Norman. Yeah. The only normal Normans that we get during this entire season is when he's talking to the prostitute, when he's fixing the lamp, when he's in the car with her.
That's not normal Norman.
That he's gone at that point. Now, he doesn't end up killing her or anything. He is on the level. When he comes back, she really does make him take his car back. But he doesn't seem to have a good memory of it. No. So he's kind of fluctuating there where he's starting to lose memory because I think he's slightly blacking out.
It's because he's attracted to her and like, he's in that situation where I think he is like kind of blacking out.
And he also doesn't allow like himself to sleep with Emma because Norma, this is like where it's interesting because Norma, while I had said in the past with other seasons that Norma isn't sexually repressive, in this one, she is, but in a different way, right?
She's like
she thinks the prostitute is like a slut. Yes. She's like, oh my God, a slutty girl like that. Like, so she kind of has that traditional Norma vibe to her, like Olivia Hussey does in a Psycho 4. Yeah. But with Emma, it's kind of the flip of that. Like, Norma, you don't want to be the asshole who hurts her. In that moment, she becomes Norma Louise with Caleb. This is a protection of Emma from Norman and his male ways, right? Because like that's very reminiscent of the Olivia Hussey version of like, you dirty boy, like you're gonna ruin my, but of course, like in that, Olivia Hussey's Norma Bates and Vera Farmiga's, they're both hypocrites because they're fucking screwing everybody and
Of
having
course.
tons of sex.
Yeah.
But then being like, Norman, you can't ruin this woman, and you could get diseases, and you could ruin her life.
Oh
and
yeah, or like you're gonna forever.
you could
change
kill her
and,
because she has
yes.
a, you know.
Yeah, she is still sexually repressive to him while being sexually evocative to him.
Uh-huh.
And hypocritical because he sees her going off and sleeping with people and everything.
Yeah.
And he's like very jealous of that attention. He's like he wants that from his mom.
Yeah.
So but then obviously like he's sexualizing her more and more this season.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I think we talked about pretty much everything. I mean, I'm sure some things we left out. But yeah, we get way more of Norman. We got that pool that's dug.
yeah, the pool. Uh-huh.
So what are your theories on what's going to happen with that?
I don't even know what that could be.
Well, Bob Paris is dead now.
I know. That's
so
why I'm
it's
like,
not really anything
it's
anymore.
nothing. I don't know if she's going to actually try and build a pool or... Because there's no pool
well,
in
the Bates Motel does not have a pool.
Right. So I don't know what she could put down there. Like, I don't know that it could be like some underground something.
Okay.
Maybe. But like, I don't know what. I don't know. I have no idea what could go down there. It's just going to be a pit for Norman's victims.
Yeah.
Instead of the bog.
Right. Okay. So yeah, anything else that you can think of? We talked about pretty much every character.
The only other thing I'll say, and this is just super minor, is that we also see in this season Norman's, because I don't think we saw it in the other ones, although maybe we did, his taxidermied like dog everything are coming
so yeah, they're coming to life
around him.
That's
so
a good point.
I just wanted to point that out because I think this is the first time we see it in the show.
So yeah, he's bringing other living beings, and so good for bringing that up because that definitely adds to it of like, so he's not only seeing Norma, he's bringing animals to life.
Yeah.
But also there's this really like convenient, weird moment where he chases his pretend dog down the street pretty freaking far because as far as we're concerned, town's far away. Yeah. And he runs all the way to the bridge where Bradley killed herself, and sitting right in the middle of the road is a car. And Bradley is sitting outside of her car, standing right in the middle of the road, and then turns around for the big reveal for the end of the episode. And I'm like, that was a really weird, convenient. Bradley's just standing outside of her car. Yes. And then Norman, like she's standing in the middle of the street. For what reason? I have no idea.
That's her entering town, and I think she's just kind of
she's just looking at the bridge where she died. She's
so messed up, but she's so sad.
Norman just so happened to come up on her.
I mean, that is pure coincidence because I don't know why he would. Inconvenience. Because there's no reason that he would be led to her. Like, there's no reason he would know that she was there or anything. Like, he just happened to be there at the same time.
It's super silly writing.
It's convenience.
It's super silly writing. All they have to do is like a car pulls up next to him. I could rewrite that scene so easily to have it be like, you know, who are you? You know, like Norman thinks someone's following him. You know, you have the car drive past him a couple times and he's like looking and he's like thinking he's paranoid. Maybe even sees Norma in the car or something, you know, because she's watching over him when he's with Emma. And then like she has her back turned and we think, well, is that Emma or who is that? And then she like, you know, then she turns in the car and it's her. This is a much easier reveal than her just being randomly standing in the street when Norman runs up in the middle of nowhere when she would never have known in a million years he was coming. It's sloppy writing in that one place. Everything else, and the acting is the highlight of this show for sure. I really like the writing, but the acting is phenomenal.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
But that one scene definitely stuck out to me. And then the recycling of kind of the Bob Paris stuff that felt a little bit reminiscent of something in the past. But overall, I really like this season. I really like the downward spiral of Norma and Norman and the Bates family.
Yeah, I do too.
But I do like the promise, the hope of
Dylan and
Emma
and
Caleb and so anyways, next week we will be covering season 4 and then the next time it will be the end, season 5, the finale, And we'll talk about it then. But Jesus, this had to be a long review.
This is long. We talked a lot.
But I feel like everything we talked about was justified because these all needed to be discussed.
Yeah.
Every single thing.
Yeah.
Needed to be discussed. And I'm sure we could talk about more. If we went through like everything in the show, we definitely missed a couple things.
I'm sure.
But
yeah.
we talked about all the core things. And there we go. So it was fun. Thank you for tuning in if you're still here. And yeah, I mean, if you're not subscribed and you just sat through this whole video, the least you could do for an hour straight.
Subscribe.
Yeah, it's just freaking.
You can listen to the other ones.
Said it, yeah, for sure. And look forward to new videos. We make them all the damn time. And
we do.
Become a member and of the YouTube or the Patreon, and come join us for our book club and watch parties that are exclusives. And you know,
thank you to everybody who's already joined those things.
Send you dick pics, whatever you want. Don't do that. No, okay. You can send me dick pics. No, maybe we'll see. All right, guys. Bye.